Destiny at times reveals its truths in the most unlikely places. A woman, accustomed to controlling numbers and planning every detail of her own life, suddenly finds herself amidst the emotional chaos of a night that was supposed to be celebratory. Between tears, heavy silences, and a blow threatening to unravel everything she has built, an unexpected voice emerges, offering not just answers, but also a path of hope. A story about deception, courage, and the surprising way love can arise when least expected. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is the Linda's Stories channel. I hope you enjoy this story. Many years ago, tears blurred Karen's vision as she tried to insert the key into the ignition. Her hands trembled so much that the metal repeatedly scratched around the hole. Frustrated, she dropped the keys in her lap and let her head fall against the steering wheel. The restaurant parking lot was almost empty at that hour. Only a few scattered cars reflecting the yellowish lights of the lamps. The waning moon hung in the sky, a silent witness to yet another night when Karen felt invisible again. Inside the restaurant, Ethan was probably still sipping his whiskey, comfortable in the sophisticated environment he had chosen to celebrate what they were building together. The words now sounded false in her memory, like cheap metal coins that seemed valuable under the right light. Karen wiped away her tears with the back of her hands, smudging the makeup she had so carefully applied. She had chosen the teal dress that highlighted her eyes, spent a considerable amount on an expensive perfume, styled her brown hair into delicate waves, all to impress him, all to be seen. At 32 years old, Karen had built a solid career as a financial consultant. In her office, she was respected and admired for her almost surgical competence with numbers. The woman who transforms digits into security, her boss used to say when introducing her to important clients, and she loved this version of herself, confident, precise, infallible. But there was another Karen, the one who, at 16, helped Dylan Freeman pick out the perfect gift for Rebecca, the cheerleader, the same one who stayed up late, answering messages from boys who wanted advice on how to win over their friends. The girl who learned not to expect notes in her locker, nor invitations to dance at school parties. You're so nice, Karen. Any guy would be lucky to have you. As a friend. The phrase echoed through the years, varying only in details, never in essence. Now, sitting in the car with her stomach clenched from what she had just heard and seen, Karen felt like that teenager again, the nice friend who would never be the chosen one. During dinner, as she spoke enthusiastically about the returns the new investment could bring, she saw Ethan look at his phone. His face lit up with a smile she had never seen before. It was quick, just a moment, but it was enough. That smile wasn't for her. It never had been. When he got up to take an urgent work call, Karen followed him with her eyes. She saw him move to a discreet corner, away from her earshot. She saw his body relax, his posture change as if he was finally being authentic. And she heard, as she passed by him on her way to the bathroom, the low and intimate laughter he had never used with her. Everything is going perfectly, love. I got more. Yes, our plans are going as agreed. In the bathroom, Karen faced her reflection. She had just transferred another $42,000 to the account for the venture that Ethan was developing. It was the third transfer in 2 months. Money she had saved over the years, working overtime, refusing vacations, putting off travel dreams. When she returned to the table, Ethan was different. More impatient, constantly checking his watch. The charm he exuded in calculated doses seemed to have evaporated. After dessert, he made up an emergency call, apologized, said he needed to move to the bar area for more privacy, and left, leaving a formal kiss on her cheek and a promise to call the next day. Now, in the silence of the car, Karen felt the weight of the truth. There was no investment. There was no separation. There was no future together. The us he mentioned in his messages didn't include her. A sob escaped her throat, mixing with a bitter laugh. How did she, who always suspected when the numbers didn't add up, not realize that the equation between them never did? It was when she heard the knock on the window. 3 quick, decisive taps. Karen froze. The parking lot was almost deserted. Her survival instinct screamed to start the car and leave immediately. But before she could react, she saw a tall man, around 40 years old, leaning down to be at eye level with her. "Don't move. Just listen." His voice was deep but not threatening. His eyes, however, carried an urgency that kept her still. "I was at the next table. I heard your friend. I think his name is Ethan. He was on the phone when you went to the bathroom. He called someone Love and said he got more money. He said their plans are working. Sorry for my intrusion, but I felt it was right to come and talk to you." Each word was like a dagger. Karen felt her breath falter, as if the air had suddenly become rarefied. "I recognize the pattern because I work with fraud and I'm sure you're being scammed. Look, I have a card here, if you want to talk or need help to recover your money." He slid a card through the small gap in the slightly open window. Karen took it automatically, her numb fingers barely feeling the paper. "You're not the first, and if we don't do something, you won't be the last." The man straightened his posture, adjusted his dark coat, and with a nod, walked away toward a black sedan parked a few spaces ahead. Karen looked at the card in her hand. Michael Davies, Financial Fraud Investigation. Simple, direct, no frills, completely different from the expensive, elaborate cards that Ethan distributed, with motivational phrases printed in gold. That night, Karen drove home on autopilot, the world around her seeming distant and blurred. Her apartment, usually a haven of comfort with its yellow walls and bookshelves full of carefully organized financial tomes, now seemed like an empty shell. On the coffee table, the rare edition of The Birth of Love that Ethan had given her rested like a cruel reminder. "I thought of you the moment I saw it," he had said. Now she wondered how many other women had received the same book, with the same line. Karen picked up her phone and opened the conversation with Ethan. Hundreds of messages, accumulated over 4 months, each carefully crafted to seem genuine, to make her feel special. With trembling fingers, she typed, "I need to talk to you urgently about the investment." The response came almost immediately. "Of course, darling, but I'm in a meeting right now. We'll talk tomorrow, okay? Rest well." Darling. The word now sounded false, calculated. Karen looked at the time. 11:47 p.m. What kind of business meeting happened at that hour? Seized by sudden determination, Karen took Michael Davies's card and dialed the number. In the days that followed, Karen plunged into a whirlwind of emotions. The shame for her naivety, the anger at being manipulated, the fear of losing everything she had built with so much effort. Michael Davies proved to be surprisingly understanding. There was no judgment in his eyes when she recounted, her voice breaking, how she had fallen for the scam. How Ethan had initially appeared at her office as a legitimate client, only to gradually transform the professional relationship into something more personal. Emotional predators are experts at identifying vulnerabilities, Michael explained as they analysed bank statements and messages together. They know exactly what to say to each person. In your case, he saw a competent, independent woman, but emotionally lonely. The observation stung, but Karen couldn't deny its accuracy. There was something comforting in Michael's straightforward honesty, so different from Ethan's calculated sweetness. With Michael's help, Karen filed a fraud lawsuit. They discovered that Ethan, whose real name was Edward Thompson, had a history of similar scams in 3 different states, always targeting professionally successful women, especially those who worked in the financial sector, an ironic twist not lost on Karen. "Why women like me?" she asked Michael, during one of the many coffees they shared while working on the case. "It seems contradictory to target those who understand money." Michael gave a slight smile, his brown eyes reflective in the cafe's light. "Because you understand numbers, but often don't see when the emotional equation doesn't add up. Plus, there's an element of challenge for scammers like Thompson. Deceiving someone who should know better is part of the thrill for them." Karen nodded, stirring her cup thoughtfully. There was something about Michael that made her feel safe enough to be vulnerable without feeling weak. Maybe it was his straightforward honesty, or the way he treated her. With respect but without the exaggerated admiration Ethan used to manipulate her. Lydia, her closest friend since college, was the first person outside the legal process to whom Karen confided everything. Sitting on Lydia's apartment balcony, with glasses of wine and the setting sun painting the sky, Karen vented about how she felt stupid for falling for the scam. "You know what hurts the most," she confessed, swirling the wine in her glass. "It's not the money. It's knowing that everything that made me feel special was fake. Every compliment, every look, every promise. All calculated." Lydia squeezed her hand tightly. "Hey, you are special. Just because one jerk used that against you doesn't change who you are." It was during this conversation that Lydia mentioned her brother for the first time. "Noah always asks about you, you know, since that New Year's party 2 years ago." Karen frowned, trying to remember. "Noah? Your brother who works in architecture?" "The very one. He's always had a thing for you, but you never seem to notice." The revelation took Karen by surprise. She vaguely remembered Noah, a quiet man with gentle eyes and a reserved smile. They had talked briefly about books and movies at that party, but Karen was too busy trying to impress her boss, who was also in attendance, to pay much attention. "Lydia, I'm not ready for this," Karen said, shaking her head. "I just found out I was scammed by a man. I don't need romantic complications right now." Lydia raised her hands in surrender. "I'm not suggesting anything. I just thought you should know there are genuine men out there. Men who see you for who you really are, not for what they can get from you." Weeks passed. The lawsuit against Edward Thompson progressed slowly but with good prospects. Karen had recovered part of the money by quickly blocking accounts and proving the fraud. Michael remained by her side, not only as an investigator, but as an increasingly close friend. It was on a rainy Saturday that Lydia convinced her to go to a small literary cafe. "There's going to be a discussion about that behavioral economics book you love," she insisted over the phone. "Besides, you need to get out of that apartment." Reluctantly, Karen agreed. The cafe was cozy, with bookshelves lining the walls and the aroma of freshly ground coffee permeating the air. When she arrived, she saw Lydia waving from a corner table. Next to her was Noah. Unlike the vague image in her memory, Noah seemed more confident, yet still retained that gentleness in his eyes. He smiled upon seeing her, a smile asking nothing in return. "Karen, nice to see you again," he said, standing up to greet her. The conversation flowed surprisingly well. Noah spoke about his work with genuine passion, without the need to impress. He listened attentively when Karen talked, asking relevant questions, showing a real interest in what she had to say. There were no ulterior motives in his voice, no calculated looks, just an authentic and comfortable presence. In the following weeks they met more often, always in simple places, cafes, parks, a local art exhibit. Noah never pressured, never demanded. He simply was there, constant like the tick of a well-adjusted clock. One day, as they walked through a park, watching the autumn leaves fall like golden confetti, Noah stopped and turned to her. "Karen, I like you. Not as a friend or as my sister's friend. I like you as a woman, as a person. And I'd like to build something together if you're open to that." There were no grand theatrical gestures, no grand promises of eternal love. Just a simple truth, offered with open hands. Karen felt her heart race, but not out of fear or distrust. It was a different sensation, lighter yet more solid. "I'd like that," she replied, surprising herself with the ease of the response. Noah's smile, genuine and warm, awakened something inside her, a space she didn't even know existed, a place beyond the armor she had built over the years. 6 months later, Karen sat in front of the mirror, adjusting the simple necklace Noah had given her for her birthday. It was just a small emerald, nothing ostentatious, but chosen with such care that it was worth more than any expensive jewelry. The lawsuit against Edward Thompson had been completed. He was convicted of fraud and had to return the money to the victims. Karen had recovered almost everything, but the most important thing was the lesson learned. Michael Davies, now a close friend, had called earlier to confirm his presence at the engagement dinner. "I knew you two would work out," he had said, with that straightforward honesty that had become familiar. "You both have the same spark in your eyes when you talk about what really matters." Karen smiled at her reflection. At 36, she was no longer the girl who helped boys woo other girls. Nor was she the woman who felt seen only when someone wanted something from her. She was simply Karen. Imperfect, sometimes insecure, but loved for who she truly was. From the other side of the apartment, Noah called out, "Karen, we're late for dinner." She stood up, grabbed her purse, and walked toward the door, where Noah waited with a patient smile. There was no rush in his eyes, just certainty. Sometimes, Karen thought as she intertwined her fingers with his, true love doesn't arrive with grand declarations or extraordinary promises. It simply knocks on your car window in an empty parking lot and says, "Don't move, just listen." And then, when you least expect it, it stays. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.